Bill, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for agreeing to visit. So anything happening in Ann Arbor these days?
Yeah, every day. It's like the everyday. I was telling people I wasn't alive during Watergate, but this is the college football version of it because it's like every day you have a new wrinkle to this. So you're like, how did that happen?
How bad is it, Bill?
Not as it's in between. It's not like you see people tweeting death penalty; they're wasting their time. That's not going to happen. You see people tweeting nothing's going to happen. This is nothing burger. I don't think it's quite that either. It's something in between, and the NCAA is going to drag its feet like it normally does. But I mean, the Big Ten's worth watching. See if Tony Petitti issues some kind of. If these allegations are proven true, and they're still allegations, right? The Big Ten hasn't even launched an investigation yet. So I don't know where people are jumping to these conclusions, right?
Yeah. Have you talked to coaches at other programs, assistant coaches, head coaches, or otherwise, and gotten their reaction?
It's widespread. I mean, there's a lot of anger across the Big Ten, and with good reason, if this is true. It's basically the art of sign stealing is part of the game. But if these allegations are true, they took it too far. It's just a question of who took it too far, and Jim Harbaugh can still be punished for that. But if you're really reading between the lines here, I mean, I think he's coming back. I don't think he's going to the NFL. And I'll go on record as saying that. I mean, a lot of smoke around this contract extension happening. He's either ready for a fight or stick this out.
And then there was the kind of odd tweet today from the president or chancellor where he said, "I'm with this team." That was it was weird timing on that, I thought.
Whether it's weird or not, they're going to stick with him is what I'm thinking. And that's kind of what I'm reading between the lines. I don't think they're going to suspend this team during the season. Could it lead to vacated wins later? Maybe. Could it lead to – but I just don't – maybe it's my cynical brain at work, but and I've said this a lot over the last 3 weeks, I just don't see the Big Ten or the NCAA taking this team off the field. I don't see that. J.J. McCarthy's like right there with. Do you think they're going to pull the Heisman Trophy frontrunner out of a season where they're going to play Ohio State in a few weeks in a game that 20 million people might watch? I have my doubts.
Yeah, that seems unlikely. It does. I was talking to a coach about this recently, and he was quick to kind of do what you did when you said allegations. And he said, if it's true, it's about the worst thing that you can do. He said, now, I'm not talking about sign stealing. He's like, everybody does that, and if you don't change your signs and you get caught, that's on you. That's a you problem.
Right.
But if you're funding someone within your program to go on site and video stuff and take notes and sneak around, then this coach looked at that far differently than what is just viewed as part of the game.
Well, and keep in mind, and I know Boo Corrigan last night said this won't be part of the playoff. It's an NCAA issue, not a college football playoff issue, but it could become a college football playoff issue down the line. And remember, who's on the Michigan Athletic Directors on the committee, by the way. But those coaches and ADs, coaches in particular, may have some strong feelings on that. Jim Grobe's on the committee. He's probably the most highly respected coach I can think of. And I know Jim because he was down at OU when I was at OU, and he is I'll put it to you this way, Richard, there's not a coach out there I respect more than Jim, and he's on the committee, and he may have strong feelings on that.
Yeah, you may be onto something there. We got our first college football playoff rankings last night. I didn't think there was a lot to argue about. We kind of talked through those earlier today. My overall feeling was, man, I wish we had a 12-team playoff this year because this would be great.
I'd love to have an 8 this year. I think an 8 would be perfect because I don't know that, I think if we had 8, it'd make that 7 through 11 range even more exciting. Because if you're sitting there like Ole Miss, you're 10, but you're in decent shape if we have 8. Penn State, you're 11, but you beat Michigan, you're right back in the mix. And I've always thought 8 was the best number. But like you know what? One of the things about these rankings, they used to be an event, and we'd get all bent out of shape, and everybody would overreact. And I remember how viral it was the first couple years.
Oh yeah,
that anymore. I think we're just kind of. I mean, I can tell you from a traffic standpoint, it's like that. People aren't. I think we just kind of knew who the 4 would be or who the top 10 would be, and it wasn't that big of a deal last night.
And it's taken us a few years, Bill, but I think everybody finally has come to the realization that it doesn't matter in October or November 1st or October 31st. Like, it's good to know where you are from a position standpoint, but all this stuff's going to sort it out over the next 5 weeks.
But I still enjoy it. I do. I know my boss doesn't. My boss is like, why do people get all bent about these? And I said, well, it's fun. I like having numbers next to teams. And I know Boo Corrigan also said that it's a clean sheet of paper every week. They say that all the time, but it's still a fun, clean sheet of paper. It gives us 25 teams to look at. It changes the dynamic of the season a little bit because we stop caring about – not stop caring, but I mean the AP poll becomes the college football playoff rankings. I still look at the AP poll because I think to me it's always been – it's two different gauges of how to look at these teams, so you have to look at both.
All right, based on we've got a really sexy slate of games this weekend. Based on the numbers by the names and nothing else, more likely to pull the upset this weekend, Kansas State over Texas or Oklahoma State over your Sooners?
Even. I think both of them could happen. I mean, there's not I've said this a couple times this week, there's not a team stepping into a more hostile environment this weekend than the Oklahoma Sooners. With that being the last installment. And could you imagine if Ole Miss and Mississippi State had a final Egg Bowl for the foreseeable future? What the road team would be facing? It's going to be unprecedented, and I think they're in for it there. Kansas State's playing really good ball, too. 41-3, 41-0 last 2 weeks, going to Texas, playing a backup quarterback. Longhorns better be careful.
All right, let me do it again. Based on the numbers by their names, more likely to pull the upset, USC over Washington or LSU over Alabama?
Ooh. USC. I'm going against the grain there. I think Alabama's going to win. I think Alabama's going to slow LSU down a little bit, and they're at home. And I know there's a lot of value in the Tigers there. I think Alabama's going to win. Will not be surprised at all if USC beats Washington in a ridiculous 46-43 type game. Because neither one of those teams has stopped the run the last 3 weeks. And the added wrinkle of Caleb Williams and Michael Penix and that NFL draft kind of wrinkle to it, right? I think Caleb Williams is going to be at his best ball on Saturday.
Yeah, maybe he'll even get an ownership stake in an NFL team based on how he plays this week. We'll see. What do you make of the Texas A&M Ole Miss game in Oxford? 11 a.m. kickoff on ESPN coming right out of game day at Vaught Hemingway.
I don't know why that spread's so low. So maybe you got to tell me something. Why is this so tricky? To me, it looks pretty straightforward that if Ole Miss doesn't turn the ball over, keeps that running game going with Quinshawn around Jackson Dart, that they should be fine. But that line is tripping me up a little bit. They're giving Texas A&M more than just a fair chance to go in there and win. So I think it's a take-care-of-business game for the Rebels, who are probably all those teams I talked about last night. I'm glad we're on because I didn't get to talk about them much. They are the least talked about top 10 team. They're under the radar. And if LSU beats Alabama, they're in very good position as long as they continue to take care of business. So, I like the Rebels to win and belong in the top 10 there.
So we do a segment called the Fishy Line of the Week. Would that be yours? Ole Miss favored only by 3?
Tricky, yeah. That's one. What other one in that top 25? I mean, Oklahoma State's tricky to me. They're daring you there. I mean, the fact that Oklahoma is 6 points on the road and all those things I mentioned, but they're also, Mike Gundy's 3-15 against Oklahoma. So it's really hard for me to read that line because in theory I'm like, man, Oklahoma State's been on fire the last 4 weeks. Their running back's awesome. They should cover that, but Oklahoma could just as easily bounce back and beat them by 2 touchdowns.
Bill, our time is always too short. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us this afternoon and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Hey, no problem. Thanks very much.